Here we are for another episode of Dreamchasers. I'm Lucas Barra. I started this show with the intention of bringing inspiring people on the show to talk about how they're overcoming the challenges they are having in their life, the experiences, because when you're pursuing a big dream, whether it be starting a successful business, becoming a famous musician, there are so many trials and tribulations, and to have inspiring content out there for other people who are on the journey is crucial. That's why I started the show. And today I'm very happy to have a close friend who definitely had a part in helping me to chase my dreams. That would be Anthony Roumell.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Good to have you here, man.
Thank you. It's a really honor to be here. First off, I'd just like to thank Lucas for creating this whole show, because I think what he's up to is a really awesome stand for people to pursue what they love to do and find a way to go after life by the horns. And not many people are spending their Saturdays going around finding people to interview about what they do that makes them tick and what they found that helps them be the best version of themselves out in the world. So thank you, man. It's an honor to be on your show.
Yeah. Awesome. So Anthony, you're a whirling dervish in terms of what you're involved with. So I think the best way to always start is to understand how we got to know each other, and we can kind of go from there. Anthony and I met, really funny circumstance. My little brother Griffin was actually working out with Anthony when he was an athlete in high school, and I was still living with my parents after college. And one day Griffin's my younger brother. Griffin was talking about how you were a cool guy. I should come check it out. I don't know what honestly made me go, because I was just like, I don't even need to do this. I'm in pretty good shape. I'll just go check it out. Next thing you know, I go down to visit Anthony. We kind of hung out a little bit, and eventually we had a little bit of a spark at first, and I started working out with Anthony a little bit over time. I went from being your client to a friend to now you're one of my mentors, but now we're on the same level of friendship too. So it's not like a give and take kind of relationship, which is awesome. It's crazy to see how a relationship like that can develop. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on the show, is just because he's always a source of inspiration and light for me. All the people who know Anthony are probably be smiling when I mention that characteristic.
Takes one to know one, my friend.
Absolutely. So with that being said, Anthony, tell us a little bit about what you're up to in your life right now.
Okay. Well, I've been on a fitness quest ever since I was 16 years old. I was a musician in the beginning of my life, and when my band broke up towards the end of high school, I fell in love with the gym. And I kind of dove into the fitness world, not knowing really anything, being really kind of small, and just I was a punk rocker, guitarist, lead singer in my band before, and the gym really felt like home. I was with people, I could express myself. It was challenging. It was a very committed relationship with weight training and fitness, and I've been on a journey for a long time, and I never would have expected to be a fitness professional, but that's what I call myself. I've had my own fitness business for 12 years now. Wow. Getting old. I'm 31 years old. I grew up in Marin County outside of San Francisco, and I've just really been committed to one thing for a very long time, and it's just been an amazing ride. It's transformed itself in so many ways and twists and turns I never would have even thought would even be available, let alone be things that I would be into. And I'm at the stage now in my career where I'm really just open to the whole world of functional corrective exercise, which is really like training the whole body, alignment, breathing, all the different facets of health and well-being, and combining it with a really positive environment to help people break through areas in their life that they really want to find a powerful access to kind of recreating their physical being here on this planet. So it's pretty cool. I get deep with it. I have fun. I geek out, and it's a lot of fun. I've been doing this for a while now. It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I hear it when you're just talking about what you're up to is commitment. And for all the people who don't know Anthony, he gets up at 3:30 a.m. almost. I think one of the most important parts of success is creating winning habits, because our habits are neglected. We were brought up in a society where people don't really tell you you need to pay attention to what you're putting in your mind and what you're doing from when you get up to when you go to sleep, because that's ultimately going to create what you are in the world. And that's ultimately what creates success. So, Anthony, start with sharing about how you create your routine and how you manage to stick with that routine.
Well, number one, I like to state as a disclaimer, don't do what I do, because it probably, won't work for everyone. So getting up earlier in the morning isn't for everyone. I totally admire that, and that's okay. I have just found for me with what I do that maximizing my 24-hour clock is something that works really well for me. And, whether you get up early in the morning to start your day really early, or you get up later in the morning, that's fine. But the key is really, how do you implement discipline in your life, and having a very empowering context, which means kind of like your relationship with discipline in your life. And I'll elaborate with a little example. A lot of people, when they think about discipline, they think of rigor and structure and boarding school and, getting your hand slapped with a ruler when you don't do it and you're wrong and bad. And see, that's how discipline occurs to a lot of people. And most people are actually very disciplined, but it's actually shifting the context of how discipline occurs to them that will give them the access to a breakthrough in literally whatever they want to do in their life, whether it be fitness, whether it be public speaking, whether it be driving a car really fast, taking race classes, mountain climbing, writing essays, you name it. Mm-hmm. It's all about having a committed relationship to discipline and being okay, I call it vulnerably accepting of how you are with discipline. Mm-hmm. And so, it's discipline really is like the glue of life. Anyone that's accomplished anything substantial as far as really stuck with one thing for a long time, they will all tell you that they might have been born with certain attributes that have helped them a little bit, but the real truth of their success is due to their consistent daily strive to always improve and always show up. And the whole adage is 80% of everything you do is just showing up. And the reason why is because once you're there, you're not in your head. You're not just thinking about it. You're actually out there in action, and whatever is going to happen is going to happen. Whatever breakdowns or things that you think could happen, fears you might have, you'll have to confront them. But if you're not there, mm-hmm. you don't really get to experience that show. So you're essentially just kind of hanging out and watching the show in your head instead of just being there. So, discipline is really just committing to something much bigger than yourself. Like, I want to get my PhD, or, I want to be a great sales guy. and getting up every morning and creating yourself to be that by the choices you make and the actions you take.
So talk a little bit specifically about what you do.
Okay. So what I do essentially is I am huge on having a morning ritual. There's a lot of things I do, but I like to touch on the morning ritual because I think anyone, no matter what you're doing in any profession or practice, a morning ritual will help you. And what I mean by that is, I start seeing clients at 5 a.m. And the reason why I like getting up early and training people at 5 a.m. is because I have the most amazing people I work with in the morning. And I have to say, the people that show up at 5 a.m. are the most committed, disciplined, gritty, grimy, integrous, amazing people. And for me, I'm just a sucker for commitment. When someone commits to something, I'm like, heck yeah, man. Like, this dude doesn't even know what's happening to him, but he's going to show up. And that is just awesome. It's radical. Yeah. Because it's like, you're so vulnerable. You're vulnerably committed to whatever possibilities are going to happen, even though you don't know what they are. Mm-hmm. And being safe is great, but it doesn't get you too far in life. So I feel like getting up in the morning and having a morning ritual, a daily discipline practice that you stick to no matter what, will always set you up to win for your day. And so, for instance, I like to get up always an hour and 45 minutes before I have to be somewhere. And what that does is it gives me time to check in with myself. I like to meditate every morning. I'm a big meditator. I'm committed to doing more of it in 2015, but I meditate every day for about 25 to 35 minutes every morning, no matter what. I think about an intention for the day, like how I want my day to go. I visualize, how I expect my sessions to go, what outcomes I want to have. And I'm also flexible with how those end up being. I don't make myself wrong if it doesn't turn out to be exactly how I envisioned it, but I at least envision how I want the first steps of my day to start. And I have a morning stretching routine that I always do, which I find is amazing because no matter how much fitness or exercise or stretching or you do, anything you can do for about 10 to 15 minutes a day every single day will have a huge impact on your health and well-being, because most of us are caught up on this 24-hour clock and thinking about, days, weeks, months, and years. But when you think about like a 4 to 5 year period where you're doing the same consistent stretches for your body and breathing exercises, your body finds this like innate rhythm with it. And your body isn't on a 24-hour clock, and it's always in a constant state of change. So that's a real big winner for me. It also helps me get in tune with my body before I go out there with people all day. Because when you're with people, you're just on, you're going, you're programmed, you're having fun. But it's really important, I feel, with that hour and 45 minutes, I can make my breakfast, I can eat slowly, I can have the time to actually have enough me time. So if the entire world literally just comes to a stop for some crazy reason, like I've gotten enough of me that I can just power through. And so I'm huge on the morning routines. When I work with people, I really try and get into their world as far as the relationship with their calendar. A lot of it is how you manage your time. Almost everything is how you manage your time. Mm-hmm. And, some people go, oh, but doing the same thing every morning would just drive me nuts. And yeah, it does kind of drive me nuts sometimes. But the truth of the matter is, when I know those things nourish my body and give me, the fuel to fuel my tank so I can go out there and do what I need to do, I believe in the process. And that's really powerful, trusting the process and knowing that there's certain things that you have to do. You have to get up and brush your teeth, or you don't have to. You got to wipe your butt. You got to walk. There's certain things. And if we don't have those abilities, yeah, it stinks. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how I feel about the morning routine. It's a good structure. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest objections that people have, especially when you're getting into a morning routine. I think it's helpful to shift the context. So a lot of people will just jump into a routine. So for example, they'll start with like 30 minutes of meditation, setting goals, doing all these things, and you kind of overwhelm yourself.
It's a great point.
And I think it's important to take baby steps. So for example, I started meditating too and doing visualization before I go to work. And I started with 10 minutes of meditation. Nice. Yeah. And I would recommend doing whatever works for you in small increments and building up to it. Because otherwise you're getting yourself in way too deep. And what you find is you do that too, is other things that work for you as you're going along. So it kind of turns into fun. And like you said, you just have to go do it. I think that is one of the keys to success that you can't underscore enough, because there's so much going on in our heads. And that's what I love about you, is you're always so willing to make fun of yourself.
Totally.
I think that is something you don't hear, especially when you're listening to like successful people on radio shows. They don't talk about being able to make fun of yourself. I think that's a trait that you have, because it shows you're compassionate with your no, seriously.
No, it shows that I'm human, guys.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah. Every one of you, we are all human beings, and there's no such thing as perfect in this world.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Like, one thing I want to touch on about the routine. So, look, I was saying, a lot of people, one of the traits that we have is we like to, we have a very enthusiastic approach to things, and we tend to want to jump right into the full boogie. I'm going to jump into half an hour meditation. I'm going to make this beautiful smoothie with every green in the rainbow of colors of healthy food. I'm going to read 5 pages of book. I'm going to set my intentions, all this stuff. That is not sustainable. It's commitment and discipline are like training a muscle. Okay. You have to start slow, and you have to build a track record of yourself and build a base. And unfortunately, we live in a modern day society where instant gratification is like this overwhelming fate. Like, you don't have to do anything. If you have the money, you can go buy this or buy that. and trick yourself into thinking that you've already gotten to a goal. But the reality is, building a base takes time. And if you set yourself up to win by just taking on a little commitment, but maintain that commitment for 3 to 6 months, you will build a tremendous amount of confidence.
Yeah.
And it will actually open up the door for you to be much more curious about what else could you do that you could be more disciplined and find yourself successful at, that you might have not have had the same relationship with in the past.
Right.
For instance, if you weren't a great runner before, maybe I might want to go hire a cool running coach and start their daily lessons and start practicing meeting up with a running group and take on doing a couple 5Ks and starting running. Or I feel like learning how to paint. I was never great at art, but I would like to take a weekly lesson in using how to paintbrush and doing watercolor art. So taking on less is great. And I have a great saying for that. I call it the terrible twos. As human beings, we all fall victim to the terrible twos. And that's not just me. It's Lucas. It's everyone, especially when there's, a lot of motivation behind it. I call it too much, too fast, too soon. So what we do is we take on so much that we either, we set ourselves up to fail, so to speak, which is actually a great thing if you keep going. But most people, unfortunately, when we don't have a good experience doing something, we generally don't come back. So even me telling you this is still going to happen, but it's really, really great to start small with the idea that you're going to grow slowly and just slow cook it.
Yeah.
And if you look at any of the greatest, successful people in this world, and success, I don't talk about money being successful, because to me, that does not make you a successful person. It's who you are as a person when you reach that level of success or that level of excellence at whatever skill set you're doing. So people that have really spent their life focusing on the basics and building a slow base and really slow cooking whatever they're passionate about, they will in turn have a much higher level of fulfillment in the long run than generally someone who gets to a goal much faster, even if they work for it 100% and cruise there faster. When you slow cook things and you build a really great base, you're going to have the time to think about and reflect on all the different parts of your journey towards whatever your goal is. Yeah. And the relationship you have is you generally teach more of it to other people. You're generally much more humble. You don't have an ego because it's been crushed so many darn times that it doesn't even really exist too much anymore. And you're kind of pulled by your higher calling, which is to really give it away, which is the ultimate gift of when you have something that you've practiced and that you have a proficient level of skill with. And giving it away is the ultimate goal. Mm-hmm. And discipline is the base of all those things, structure and discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about slow cooking, I think what is so challenging in our world, you kind of started to talk about, we live in a world of instant gratification, and we want to get to wherever we are next in life so badly. So I want to get a promotion. You want to get a promotion. You want to make millions of dollars. And I kind of had this realization the other day, and we spend so much time thinking about those things. Then when you get there, it's really not that much better in the first place. And what I think is ultimately the reward is the journey.
It's the game.
It's the game. And we're just so screwed out of thinking that. I don't think it's hammered home enough by having the influences out there that are saying those things to us, because you need to focus on right now more than anything else, because Absolutely. that's what dictates what happens.
Yeah. It's really good you're pointing on that. Obviously all we have is right now. The past is the past. We really can't do anything about that. And the future hasn't been created yet. And what we're doing right now in this moment is actually dictating our future. But you can understand that and read books about being in now and all that stuff till you're blue in the face. But unless you're committed to daily action, nothing's going to happen.
It's power of now.
I got the power now.
We didn't plan this.
No, I've read this 4 times. It's a reread.
Just sitting here.
One page of Eckhart Tolle's Power Now, and you're good for like a week of thought. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
I know, right?
Anyways, back to what I was touching on. Help me out here, buddy.
Power of now.
Yeah. No. So when you're committed to something, you're you're enrolling yourself in a game that is a game with your mind. Because let's say you set a goal, I'm going to climb Mount Everest. Well, what is entailed in climbing Mount Everest? It's a huge game. Like, anyone can say they want to climb Mount Everest, but how many people actually do it?
Right.
So, you have your training. You have to get your physical being ready to climb Mount Everest. You have to do many hikes, certifications. You have to educate yourself in wilderness survival. You have to have a relationship with cold and hot, understand how to feed yourself. You have to mentally prepare yourself to make, quality decisions under pressure at high altitude where you don't have as much oxygen. There's a tremendous amount of risk, and you have to transcend the risk for the goal of reaching the peak of Mount Everest.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a ton of planning, and all of that is future planning, yet all that happens right now. So really, daily discipline, laying out a roadmap of how you're going to do it, finding the right people who can help you on your journey, they can share that with you. Following through on that is an enormous like lifelong goal for so many people. And that's just an example. It doesn't have to be, the biggest thing. It could be the simplest thing. Like, I want to learn how to swim.
Right.
But daily commitment to centering yourself, breathing, practice is the key.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to stick with it. That's the problem. You have to take action. So a lot of people, you set up the game, but then you got to play the game, and you got to play it over and over and over and over again. And you might lose like 30 or 40 or 50 times playing that game. But if you keep on practicing it, you're going to start learning the ins and outs of that game. You're going to know it with your eyes closed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I find is the coolest thing ever, when you stop giving a crap about looking good and how you're going to perform. Like, you just do your absolute best, and then you have nothing to regret, because you're still going to show up the next day and try it again and improve. See what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I also think when you're in a situation like that, you can also look at managing your fear as a game as well. When you're going to go do something that makes you uncomfortable and someone says no to you, or there are a variety of examples you could give here.
Totally.
If you play it as a game, for example, I talk to CEOs and business owners every day. And when someone says no, it's very easy to take that personally. But if you make it a game and say, hey, you know what, that's just part of what happens, it really makes things easier. And I think just in general, to kind of remember that this is all, life is a playground, right? So ultimately, when you're dealing with fear, if you realize that if you play, kind of think of it as a game, am I going to win, lose, whatever, maybe that's not the best way to look at it, but in terms of win and loss, but just making sure that there's more of a light view to it is a good way to look at it.
Totally. And like, one of my favorite quotes ever is life is a self-portrait, autograph it with excellence.
Yeah.
And it's like, we get so boggled down this day and age with all the pressures we have to always conform and do everything kind of inside the box, so to speak, and how we should live our lives and this and that. And I'm not recommending people to go break laws and do anything crazy, but if you live outside the box with your mindset outside the box, but in a positive way that makes a difference for people, that's like awesome. Like, that is where life really is. And when you see other people benefit from the work that you're putting in every day, that's just like even more motivational, like fuel to the fire. And I think one of the most powerful things in the world is having a strong work ethic. Like, we all have different definitions of what working hard is, and working hard doesn't have to be like grinding your butt into the ground every day and being miserable and sitting in traffic and, not like enjoying life and not going on trips. And I mean, working hard with a passion, passionately working hard. And when you meet people that have really devoted themselves fully to something they love, whether it be being an administrator of a school or being a police officer, or Olympic athlete, like, you can just look in their eyes and you can literally tell that they're just someone that's worked their living tail off. Like, period. Like, and like, it just goes back to like how a commitment is so attractive to me. Like, when someone's committed, I don't care about what they look like, what clothes, how much money, like like what they do for a living, like that doesn't define anyone. I feel like someone's work ethic and their commitment to level to whatever they're committed to in life is so much more of a badge of honor than anything else, because no matter how the game ends out, like you could be trying to be the best singer in the world for your whole life and take voice lessons every day. And sure, you're not going to be the next Celine Dion or Mariah Carey. It's just not going to happen. And if you work 8 to 10 hours a day at it and you do everything you can, you're going to turn out to be an amazing singer. And the reward that you're going to have in your heart every single day when you go to bed is the most valuable thing you can have on this planet. And knowing that you have no regrets because you gave everything to your purpose is even more valuable. And, you know, a great example I like is I really love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a martial art. It's a submission grappling martial art. And what I love about Jiu-Jitsu, aside from a myriad of other things, is it's not a martial art or sport where someone could be born a certain way and be favored because they're like a basketball player and they're 6'10". No offense to 6'10" guys out there. Or they're, you know, a strong power lifter, or they're great at 100-meter dash. Anyone in martial arts, especially Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, knows that if you put in your time and your work, no matter how old you are, what time you start in the game, you can literally be the best. Like, it's possible. Like, no one can stop you because it's your mind that is what's stopping you. You can put in work like no one's ever worked before, and it can happen. I mean, there's amazing champions out there that are the most unassuming, light, small guys that are so powerful because of what they put in. I mean, look at Bruce Lee, for instance. Bruce Lee was like 134 pounds or something like that. And the guy was amazing. Yeah. So those are examples of just what really gets my juices flowing. I love just the game of commitment. It's not really always about the end result. There's nowhere to get to, really. It's once you achieve those achievements, you know, if you haven't really felt and put the sweat and hard work into what you're doing, the reward is not there. Yeah. You know, it's fleeting. So anyways, yeah.
Well, let's talk about commitment though, because I feel like a lot of people say that they're committed to doing things. And this is something I recently experienced in my job where I thought I was committed, but there were roadblocks in my mind that I hadn't addressed that weren't having me be as committed as I possibly could be. So I think it's important to check in with yourself on how committed you are, because if you're not going 130% on your one thing, like I understand
199%.
Yeah, whatever percentage over 100 fits for you. And, you know, I understand you have the entrepreneurial mindset of people out there, you know, you're involved in multiple ventures, but I think you have to find your one thing that really means the most to you in your life and just burn the ships, and everything else will unfold. Because otherwise your focus is just all over the place.
Focus. Okay. Focus is an awesome word. Yeah. So focus is a very important thing. And I think for people to take something they want to work at and be committed to, let's say you have a lifelong dream to, you know, swim an Olympic pool or whatnot. You have to look at how you're going to devise your plan to have that goal actually come to in the physical form. So a lot of it first is just really having a new relationship with your word, like what you say you're going to do and how you do it when you say it. And organization plays a huge role in success in whatever goal you have. So for instance, like if you had a goal to become a swimmer and you didn't know anything about swimming, you know, the best thing to do is obviously start researching some swimmers that have really made it big, like Michael Phelps or other swimmers in the past, and read up, do some research, read up on their history, what it is they did. Then, you know, do some research on coaches, you know, find, you know, what coaches you might want to hire to, you know, help you in your goal. And then you really want to get nitty gritty with your calendar. So if you don't have a calendar, it's probably really important you start one, because managing your time is what's going to allow you to actually commit to one step at a time to reach your goal. So, you know, it really, okay, what would my week look like if I hired a swimming coach to practice 3 days a week? And what would that take of my time, of my money, of my energy, and really booking it into your life? And that is really the heart of commitment. Is most people will say they want to do things, and they really do, like authentically, but they lack the training to just learn how to book it into their life and take things off their plate to make time for what they really want to do.
Yeah.
And if you're busy and you have children and you're working a full-time job, like it's much more challenging. Like it's not an easy job. You really have to be efficient with your time. So looking at your calendar and really doing your research, looking at your calendar and saying, okay, I'm going to book in my swimming lessons. I'm going to book in my morning routine, which means I'm going to go to bed earlier, which means I'm going to change my TV shows, which means I'm going to eat my dinner at 6 o'clock every night. These are all things with discipline that help you become a more, efficient human being.
Yeah.
And that is what's actually going to dictate your actions in the pool, which is going to dictate you on how you're going to fulfill on the goal of swimming in an Olympic pool.
Absolutely.
And time management is where it all comes down to. So that's a huge, huge game, is learning how to really figure out how much time it takes. And there's so much knowledge out there these days on the internet, especially, here in San Diego, we have such a huge health and fitness industry that there's so many great pros that do everything under the sun. So that's one tip.
Well, yeah,
I could go on that for like 3 hours.
Yeah, it's definitely a popular topic, especially today, where people will be like, too busy. Well, what do you mean by too busy? Does that mean you're being productive or your head is all over the place? Because it's very easy to get in a way where you're not spending your time, especially let's say you're running a business, you're spending your time doing stuff that the business owner should not be doing. You're doing the sales, you're doing the marketing, you're doing HR.
You're wearing a lot of hats.
You're wearing a lot of freaking hats. And that shouldn't be what you're doing. You should be focused on running your business. And I don't think if you take the time to intentionally decide on what you intention, something you mentioned earlier, is so crucial on what is going to get you what you need and affect the world the most. And it's just shot because you're wasting your time already.
Yeah. Time is the most valuable commodity. I mean, we all know this, yet we all also ignore it. And then generally we just trying to pile on more stuff on a frame that's already like tipping over and not really workable.
Yeah.
And I've done this so many times in my life. I'm the king of taking too much on, and it's taken me years of hitting a wall, and I'll probably hit like 100,000 more walls in my life. But every time you get more and more efficient with your time management and you start realizing the value in outsourcing things that you thought were unoutsourceable. And it's challenging because lots of times we just want to do it all, but we really can't. Like we need to have partnership in all areas of our life, whether it be with our wife, our girlfriend, boyfriend, boss, employees, friends. It's all partnership. And it's also, we could be more efficient, better versions of ourselves so we could focus on what we're really committed and passionate with. And so that's a huge, huge one right there to chew on.
How about being like less busy? Because it's like a status thing to be like super busy.
Totally.
So it's like so funny when you're not busy. It almost feels weird, but you have to take the time to do that for yourself, because otherwise your brain's like just not wired to just be completely overwhelmed.
Totally. Being learning how to turn off your self-talk is a great thing. And that's why I love meditation and yoga and other practices like that, even though they drive me nuts sometimes, because I'm constantly making fun of my brain. I'm like, really? Is that what's really going on right now? Yeah, I really need to do that? No, I don't. So again, it goes back to my calendar. When I look at my week, I go, okay, like if I'm doing this much for this thing and this much for that thing, I'm training this much, like I'm going to need this much downtime. Like we need to learn how to actively book downtime into our schedules, which means like take off 1 to 2 days a week if you can, completely. And if you can't, find a way to make it happen, because you're not on this planet just to work all the time. And even if you love what you do for everything that you pretty much do in your day, like it's still work at some point. Like there's still a physical test, like a physical taxation on the body. So in no way should you be tracing your deems to the point where you don't have a life. Like we've all been there for certain spurts of school, whether it be school or, being an athlete, but you can't do everything for everyone all the time. You have to learn how to cool it. So it's
cool your jets.
Cool your jets.
But let's talk about another key part of that, which is I heard you can't always be doing what you want. And I think this image of doing something you love is so skewed because a lot of us don't understand what love really is. You know, you look at, like, for example, I'm very fortunate. I have parents who've been married for 25 years. And when they watch this, I'm sure they're going to crack up with me talking about them. But, you know, love isn't this perfect thing where everything is hunky dory all the time. It's
love is commitment too.
Yeah. Love is commitment. There are negatives. And that's just like, if you're in a situation where everything is lovey-dovey and you're not challenged, you should be worried.
Yeah, that's what you call lust.
That's what you call lust.
That's
instant
not love.
gratification, all that other stuff that you don't want to be dealing with.
Yeah. Well, love is who's going to pick you up when you fall, who's going to show up when you're all not looking good, and you're, you know, who's going to hold you to a higher level of just who knows the best version of you when you don't see it for yourself. To me, that's what love is. Someone that holds you to be accountable to the best version of yourself when you don't see it, and hangs in there with you until you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, to me, that's what love is. And what does that come down to? That's commitment. That's someone that's committed to you and your success.
Right.
And we are all human. We all struggle with trying to be who we need to be for our kids, for our parents, for our grandparents. We have sick people around us all the time that we love. Life is constantly changing, and new things are coming in and old things are coming out. And being committed to loving and supporting people no matter what is probably the most foundational thing you can have for your happiness and success.
Absolutely.
Over any goal or financial or job or whatever. If you don't have the base of that, I mean, you are really lucky to have your family. I'm very lucky to have a wonderful family too. But you know, I have a lot of friends that don't have the best family dynamics that are still, they have a lot of love in their life, and they've learned how to, you know, develop other friendships that fulfill them deeply.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if you can take away anything from what we've been talking about today, habits are important, commitment's important, but love, I think, is what opens doors.
Love what you do, baby.
Yeah. And once you, and that means like love the bad stuff too. You know, when you're going through a rough stage of your business or a rough stage of whatever you do, and you learn to embrace that, then you realize anything else that comes your way really is not that bad.
Yeah, it's all temporary. Like, in the grand scheme of the whole universe, tough times are just temporary. Sometimes they go on for a long time. Sometimes we're faced with an overwhelming amount of hurt and sadness, and it takes a while. But when you surround yourself with people that care about you and people that consider you family, friends, loved ones, you will find a way back on top. It's just a matter of time. And without those lows, you don't have highs. I mean, so the goal in life is to have those lows and highs, but just try and keep it mellow. But we're not really in control. I hate to say it. No matter what you do, you're not really in control. All you can do is control the way you react to things and how you choose to be when shit hits the fan. Pardon my French.
Yeah, record that part of the podcast.
Yeah. How you react to things is the most important thing in this world. And any time that we fall off the bandwagon, it's generally because we're choosing to react to a circumstance and take it personally in some way, shape, or form, and make meaning out of it, when generally it's just life happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, if I could say one thing before we leave, just for you guys to remember, is really just take a look at your calendar. If you don't have one, look at how you're managing your time for your health and well-being, for the things that are important to you, goals you might have for the future, all those things. Look at your time, your calendar, and see how you can be more efficient with your time. Like that right there will translate to a much more powerful relationship with getting things done without overwhelming yourself and having a negative experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. So pimping out your rims, pimp out your calendar.
Yeah. Pimp out your calendar, man. And be vulnerably committed, meaning show up no matter what. And even if you're not your best, when you still show up, and you might look not off your game, and you might have to, you know, not look like Superman to your boss, your employer, or whatever, like, just show up. Over time, that will speak more than anything you could possibly do, how you show up. And, you know, take an action.
Absolutely. Well, Anthony, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, brother. Pleasure.
Of course. Cool. Oh,